You've heard about Commissioner Proud's efforts to ensure that Ulysses S. Grant stays on the $50 bill. What exactly is the late president's link to Clermont County? Joining us now is local historian Rick Crawford. Rick, we are here at the birthplace of Ulysses S. Grant in Point Pleasant. Tell us about this.
Well, Grant was born here on the morning of April 27th, 1822, in the main room here. He was it's strange. One description has him as a big baby, another description has him as a thin baby. But we do know he grew up not to be a normal size. He was, about 5'8" or maybe a little shorter, about 150, 160 pounds. And his parents were a little different. His dad's tannery is back on the site of where the Methodist church is here. The Grants were Methodist, and that's how the family made their money. They moved here in 1821. They moved out when the baby was just 11 months old to Georgetown because his dad needed more trees of what he needed to make the acid for the making of tanning the hides of animals for his tannery.
Rick, you've heard some of the comments about the push to have Grant replaced on the $50 bill by Ronald Reagan. Some have actually said that when it came to presidents, Grant didn't do that good of a job. What do you have to say to respond to that?
As a president, he ranks on most people's list as near the bottom of the list. But some of the things that he did, I think his main setback was he trusted people, and his family, his friends, and some of them took him to the cleaners, and he was not aware of that. And he would defend them, and as being a good friend or family member. But he never himself did anything particularly underhanded. I know there was an incident with George Armstrong Custer that he did something historically that, but he tried very hard. I mean, when he campaigned for president, he wanted to reunite this country. His speeches revolved around "let us have peace." And it was very obvious at Appomattox. He did not want the South to surrender their swords, their horses, and everything else. And he told his men not to celebrate when the Confederates surrendered. He said, let's get it back together again. And it was a very peaceful, a loving kind of person. As far as his presidency, he just doesn't rank very high. But as a person, there was an incredible amount of things he did.
He is one of Clermont County's favorite sons, especially for the wartime efforts.
Oh, goodness. I'll tell you, when Morgan's Raiders went through here, I don't think they were aware when they came through that Grant's birthplace was just not many miles away from him. This house would have been gone. It wouldn't have survived. But, I mean, how many, we've had a little over 40 presidents, and how many counties do we have in this country? Yeah, we're very fortunate to have had that. And not only that, but he is, being the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armies, in addition to his being president, makes him an incredibly significant person.
Let's talk about some of his biggest accomplishments as a general.
Well, the United States was in big trouble in the Civil War. They were losing all the major battles. In the East, they were being just absolutely obliterated by Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and some of the others. But Grant was commanding out west. It took him forever to even get a commandership. People just, he had been an officer in the war with Mexico, but people just sort of ignored that. He came to Cincinnati to talk to General McClellan to try to get a good commandership, and McClellan pretty much ignored him. But he went out west and began proving himself in battles in Kentucky and Missouri and western Kentucky and Missouri, and he just was obliterating the South. And then finally Lincoln and some of the generals in the East were noticing that that maybe this is not such a bad thing. So finally he was appointed to come east, and his greatest thing was all the Yankee generals seemed to be scared to death of Robert E. Lee. He said, let Lee be, let Lee worry about what we're planning on doing, not worrying about what he's doing all the time. And he got on Lee and did not give him a breath. And that's what ended the war primarily, is he kept the pressure on the South constantly. And Lee just ran out of men, and the people in the South ran out of enthusiasm, and Grant was just unrelenting. And it was U.S. Grant, unconditional surrender. Every time he beat somebody, he demanded a complete, total surrender. But then he didn't take great revenge on these people either. He knew they were Americans, and he wanted to reunite the country.
When you talk about Grant, I know one word that came up a couple of times already in our conversation has been loyal. How would you best describe him?
I'll tell you, I think he was a good person. It's amazing knowing his background, that he ended up, he came from nowhere, Point Pleasant to Georgetown to West Point. He did receive his appointment to West Point from Thomas Hamer, who Hamersville is named after. And Hamer is the one who ended up by accident giving. Grant was born here with the name of Hiram Ulysses. He didn't get his name till a month after he was born. His family got together. They named him Hiram after a grandfather, and Ulysses after the warrior from over in Greece. And he hated it. His mother initialed a lot of stuff, like my mom used to. We went to when he was finally appointed to West Point, he had all these, everything he had was HUG, hug, and he thought that was very effeminate, his initials. And so when they moved to Georgetown, when his family moved to Georgetown at school, he asked the kids to call him Liss after his middle name. He never went on about his first name. And the kids called him Liss. And when Hamer made the appointment, he knew the boy had been called Liss, so he assumed the boy's first name was Ulysses. And the common practice at the time was a firstborn son to a family received the mother's maiden name, and his mother was Hannah Simpson. So Hamer made the appointment out for Ulysses Simpson Grant. And of course, he kept it. And at West Point, he picked up the name U.S. Grant. Uncle Sam Grant. In the Civil War, he picked up U.S. Unconditional Surrender Grant, and went on through. And that's what he stayed with. But he never identified S as Simpson. Normally, he always signed everything Ulysses S. Grant or U.S. Grant. Never wrote out Ulysses Simpson Grant.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
In Point Pleasant, this is Clermont County Today.